What's up, GTM listeners? In this episode, we're going to be highlighting a recent event I hosted all around B2B, outbound sales, prospecting, and everything in between. In this event, is a little bit unique where we had 9 different practitioners that are all experts in different areas. It could be tapping into niche communities, social selling, cold email, cold calling, how to maximize conferences, how to get warm introductions, how to make sure your email domains are set up correctly to do any sort of email prospecting. It was a packed full event. I personally learned a ton. I'm going to be rewatching the recording myself just because these speakers really respect all of them. They all really brought a lot of really interesting insights. So I'm excited for you to listen in. This is also something we're going to be doing moving forward as well. Hopefully every month, we're going to be doing a different topic, go-to-market topic. Next month will be inbound marketing. We'll probably do a partnership one, maybe community-led growth, product-led growth, different go-to-market motions and tactics you can use to grow your organization. We'll bring on experts in this fast-paced, high-intensity event format where we're really laying it all out for you. I'm almost thinking this as like the TikTok of B2B events in the sense that we're combining really fast-paced, insightful, the best of the best insights, but in a more long form format where you're kind of getting best of both worlds. So hope you really enjoyed this. Let's jump right in to B2B Outbound, listening from 9 practitioners, 9 different practical topics. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. We're going to get right started jumping in with Will talking about how to do great cold emails. Hey Will, thanks for joining us.
Hey Taylor, thanks for having me, Matt. Good to be here. All right, folks, my name is Will Aiken, chatting about how to send a good cold email in 2024. So let's talk about that, shall we? Taylor, are you gonna ask me questions, or do you want me to just spiel for 9 minutes? What's the deal?
Let's spiel for 9 minutes. I'd love to hear. We got a short time frame, so I'd love to hear. Give me your 3 to 5 best cold email practices. Let's do it.
All right, I'm gonna go through them. So first of all, before we even start considering writing an email, we need to keep some rules in mind for our cold emails. People get a lot of cold emails these days, and most of the folks we're reaching out to, they're super freaking busy. They're like, got a million things to do on their plate. And although most buyers would prefer getting a cold email over a cold call, the reason why they prefer that is because it's way easier to ignore. So we've got to recognize that when people are in their inbox, when they're looking at these cold emails, when they're receiving over 100 cold emails a day in some cases, we need to give ourselves the best chance of actually getting them to read the email, which means that there are a few considerations to make. Number one, we got to get that bad boy opened. And to do that, we got to write a good subject line and make sure our preview text does not tip people off that what is in the email before they open it is something useless. Because even if the message is great, if they think it's cold email, they're on defense mode. They're trying to save time. They're trying to get their job done. So they're just going to whack delete for anything that looks like a marketing or sales email. So my first thing to consider is to get your emails opened, stop trying so hard. This is quite a hot take in some cases because people are like, oh, whack their name in the subject line, do this crazy pattern interrupt. I go the complete opposite direction. You want to do everything you can to make sure your email doesn't raise alarm bells in the minds of your prospects. It doesn't make them go, this is definitely a sales or marketing email. So instead, I'm a real big fan of literally 1-word subject lines. I know that sounds like not much, but if you can just summarize the content of your email in just 1 word, then it's going to pique their curiosity more than saying some, creative question or including their name in the subject line or whatever it may be. Now, the other consideration in your inbox, if you look in your inbox right now, you're going to see the subject lines of the emails and then the preview text. The preview text is almost as important as the subject line. If they look at that and they're not sure about it, they might default to looking at the preview text. Most cold emails from salespeople, they start the exact same way. It normally starts, hey, Taylor, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out because I noticed this thing. So to, again, avoid fitting into that pattern of spammy sales and marketing emails, just try and start your email in a different way. Basically, don't start the email with yourself. Instead, jump straight into the body of the email. A lot of them also start with, hey, Taylor, I hope you're doing well. How are you? Whatever. If we can actually just try and move the first bit of the email to a little bit further along the way, so we're not starting with hello, Taylor, or hi, Taylor, or hey, Taylor, or good morning, Taylor, and instead just go straight into the body of the email and then tack Taylor's name onto the end of that so we still know it's for him. then we're also going to see a lot more wins. So how does that actually sound? Because now we're getting to the body of the email when we talk about preview text. My email body itself is going to be broken down into 4 segments. And it's going to be short, ideally under 75 words. That's the sweet spot I find. I'm going to make sure it's not formatted like one big bulky paragraph, because let's be real, when we open something and we look at it and it's long, our eyes immediately glaze over and we don't want to read that. So we're going to split it out of lots of white space, kind of like a LinkedIn post. You know how everyone does the double spacing on LinkedIn posts? Same reason that it's easier to read something when it's broken out for you. And the 4 paragraphs I'm going to use are these. So I call this framework the OPSA framework. And I just call it that because I want to give it a name. But it starts like this. Observation, that's something about them that you've noticed. To get their attention, show you've done their research and explain exactly why you reached out to them in particular. P stands for problem. Then you're going to tie a problem into the observation you make up front, highlight that challenge or problem for that customer. Again, further explain why you're reaching out, but also not talking about your product or solution up front, because we don't want to be pitching in these things, because again, that meets the pattern of most sales and marketing emails. Solution, so that could be a customer story or a little bit about how you help customers solve the problem that you just mentioned. And then A stands for ask, which is typically in a cold email, a close-ended question that makes it super easy to respond to. So let's go through a little framework here. Observations, that's going to sound like this. Hey, Taylor, it looks like this thing is happening. Or I could even just start with, looks like this thing is happening, Taylor. And then I'm avoiding hitting that pattern of, hey, Taylor, which pretty much every cold email to Taylor today. And it looks like this thing's happening. And that's not going to be some weird personalization, like it looks like you went to this university, or it looks like you love cats and dogs. It's going to be something about Taylor's business that suggests or allows us to hypothesize that a problem is taking place. So I could say, hey, Taylor, looks like your marketing team's headcount is down in 2024. And then we can go into a problem statement related to the observation. So if I'm selling a LinkedIn ad management service, I could say a lot of folks, when they have, headcount reduction, whether people leave or there's layoffs taking place, they find that there's no one left to manage ads, or managing ad campaigns becomes one of the most time-consuming tasks on the team. So that's my problem statement. Now I'm elaborating on a problem, and it's related to the observation, the fact that Taylor's teams got smaller over the past year, let's say. And then I go into the solution. Companies work with us to leverage our expertise and make sure those don't get dropped off. And then I can go into a question. Does this sound interesting? Does this sound like it's worth a chat? Have you worked with any agencies in the past? And that's the perfect framework for a first touch cold email that, again, observation explains why you're reaching out. Problem, this is something that I think might be happening as a result of what I looked at. Solution, this is how we help other companies with that problem. And then ask, a close-ended CTA that makes it super duper easy for them to get back to your email. Now that's a lot right there, Taylor. So have I hit 9 minutes yet? Sometimes time flies.
You got probably another 30 to 60 seconds. Just real quick, first observation. I love that you're first a pattern disruptor, and you're with marketing and sales. I think one of the biggest takeaways I've ever gotten is just be different, right? Like if everyone else is doing something, try to stand out a little bit. Anything for a follow-up email real quick before we go on to Mandy?
I was hoping I'd have time for that, so that's great. Yeah, so again, follow-up emails, you want to just, now if your first email didn't work, you want to switch up the tone, the pattern, what you're saying in the email. So any follow-up emails, whether it's 1, 2, 3 potentially follow-up emails, make sure they're spaced out, but try and switch the message in those. So people, because your first email was short and didn't do too much pitching, your second email could maybe clarify a little bit more exactly how you help your customers, and there you go into a bit more detail of your service. Or you could maybe highlight another challenge that you help customers solve, because you can probably assume that if the first one didn't land, then it's worth switching up the tone. What you don't want to do is just be bumping thoughts, circling back on this, touching base, because those things tend to lend to unsubscribes and, of course, spam reports, which are bad news for your domain reputation, which I believe you've got Jesse in to talk about today a little bit later, and I'm sure he'll touch on that as well.
Totally will. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm sure we could spend another hour talking about email in general. Folks, go follow Will. We'll put your link in the show notes and everything. Great content. We'll love all your content, especially on LinkedIn. Thanks so much, Will.
Thank you, Taylor. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, let's bring Mandy on stage. I've been following your content on LinkedIn for a while around social selling. So in the next 8 to 9, 10 minutes or so, give us your rundown on your best practices for social selling.
Yes, definitely. So this was a perfect tee up for Will's awesome chat there. And what I like about what we're talking about today is we're all talking about ways to stand out, right? Like Will's talking about, hey, you need to look different, you need to be different. So what I love about social selling is it allows you to stand out. And so when we're talking today about cold email and cold calling and all the ways to stand out, when you start with social, it's actually not that cold, right? So we're trying to start on social to build these relationships, to engage with people. And that is the way everything is shifting, right? Every single person that's on this today, all these speakers, they have a presence on LinkedIn. They understand the power of social selling. They could all talk about the same things I'm about to talk about because they get it. So we're not in a silo anymore. We're not just doing cold call, cold email. Like it really needs to come together because that is the way that the market has shifted. So people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So if I'm going to reach out to you, Taylor, and I'm going to hit you up on cold email or even cold call, and you might be interested in my product, you might visit my LinkedIn profile. And if it's crap and I haven't posted in 9 months and there's like 2 things on it, you might be like, nah, I don't know. Right. And this isn't even if I'm reaching out on LinkedIn, I'm talking about like, this is where people go. They're looking to see, does this person have a presence and a company? So this is the power of social. And the challenge is with salespeople, that's why I'm here in Vegas right now speaking about this exact same thing, is they're just not doing it. They're just, quite frankly, they're not doing it. And it's almost like you don't know what you don't know. Like they don't understand it. They don't know really how they should be using it. They're just leveraging Sales Navigator to do some basic research and maybe to build some lists. So they're not taking it that step further. Like when I was speaking yesterday in front of 379 plus people here in Vegas, and I asked a question like, how many of you are leaving comments, like at least, 1 comment a week on people's posts, right? And like there's like 2 people that raise their hand, it's like they're not even leaving comments. And so I want to talk now about my friendly leader method, which is essentially what I just said. But this works really well when obviously people are active. I understand that not all of our prospects are actively using LinkedIn, but there's other ways you can do this. You can even engage with a company page and then start dialogue from there. But how my friendly leader method works is you have a list of prospects. Obviously, this works amazingly if you have Sales Navigator. If not, you can still do this with the free version of LinkedIn or LinkedIn Premium. But you go and you engage with them. So if they're posting content, awesome, engage with it, leave a comment, like it, etc. If they're not, look for something else on their profile that you can relate to. You can call something out that's personal. You could also go engage with their company content. So I've actually had clients land clients they were going after from engaging with their company content alone because they start to see that familiar face and then they start engaging with other people, sending connection requests throughout the company. And then you send a connection request after you engage with, whether it's, on Twitter even, right? It could be anything. Like look to see where this person is. What are they doing on social? Are they on Twitter? We talked about Twitter yesterday too, because in tech, Twitter or X, I'm still not used to calling it X, is still a viable, way to reach out to people, to engage, to retweet, to respond, to start the dialogue. So it's all about starting that conversation and then standing out. So what can we do to mention that, like, hey, I actually did my homework and I know about you? Like, let's seem like real human beings here. Like we're talking, that's why I call it my friendly leader method. Because essentially as salespeople, we're just trying to be everyone's friend. And if we're doing that in a way that is genuine and it doesn't come across slimy, it works really well because most salespeople are just like, I want to hit my numbers. I want to blast out as many as I can, throw stuff at the wall and hope it sticks. So that's the method that I have been utilizing my clients, and it's successful, but you have to think outside the box too when it comes to, where are these people hanging out? Does that make sense?
I love it, Mandy. Anything from a leadership standpoint, because I imagine especially building relationships, building friendships takes time, right? It's not just the sales cycle or the marketing cycle, if you would, is going to be longer than maybe some people expect, but it proves to great results in the long run. How to create a culture of it, and how can leaders create a culture? If you don't mind, a follow-up question.
Yeah, that is a really great question. Lead by example, right? So when I'm working with companies, I want the leaders to actually do what I'm saying. And so the best successes that I've seen with companies that I've worked with is the leaders are doing the same things that I'm telling the SDRs and AEs to do, right? So if we can get them to at least partly do what we're talking about here and get them to, it's all about like, we need buy-in from the top. Like, we need people to believe in this. It's not just about what tactics do we do, how do we talk to people, how do we resonate, how do we not look like a slimy salesperson like everyone else. Those are all like, obviously, okay, we agree with that. But does leadership actually believe in the power of social? Do they believe that this works? And what are they doing themselves? And so it all starts at the top, right? And so it's difficult to come into an organization where the leaders aren't doing crap on social, and they don't really care. Unless they're ready to change, and make that change and care. That's a whole different ballgame. But we have to have the leaders also be in this, because this is what their teammates are looking to them for also, is like, hey, I want to see, like, if you believe in this and you're doing it, then I'm going to follow suit. But if you don't, why the hell am I doing it?
Well said. Love that, Mandy. Any thoughts on even, I'm sure you have lots of thoughts on this as far as like time commitment and, how much, especially from a leader, if a C-suite or whatnot, they're thinking about integrating this. And then for the rest of their org, I can see, especially leading by example, time, right? How do I have time? And then how do you think about that? And how do you advise your clients on that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I'm glad you brought that up. So I am a huge fan of time blocking. And so we have a 1 hour a day checklist that we have for our clients, and we encourage everyone to time block. And I do it in 15-minute increments. So for example, every single day, and it could vary on the day depending on what you have going on, but it could be spend 15 minutes leaving comments on prospects and industry leaders posts. Spend another 15 responding to messages. Spend another 20, sending X number of connection requests. Send another 20 on looking in Sales Navigator. So when you are serious about doing this and you actually put specifics, not just like, hey, I'm going to spend an hour a day on LinkedIn. We have a checklist, look at it, follow it. Don't just like go on and meander around. And then before you know, it's 50 minutes later and you've done absolutely nothing, like you have to be diligent with your time. But this also goes back to leadership too, is like, are you allowing your people to make an effort, a concentrated effort on LinkedIn? Because it's all about consistency, right? Social is all about consistency. You have to be doing it every single day for it to actually pay dividends. And so I love the time blocking strategy because it's there, it's on your calendar, and it's very specific on what they want to do. And then they can even set a timer. So that's ideally how I like to go about doing it. And it keeps everyone structured because, our days are crazy. Like, there's so much going on. We're getting bombarded. And if we can have that time and then just shut everything out and actually do it, it doesn't take very long for you to see results.
I love that. I'm sure you get better and better the more you do it, obviously, and that consistency over time. Any closing thoughts, Mandy?
Yeah, so closing thoughts is just do it. I feel like, and this is coming up more and more. I've been doing this for a very long time, but specifically social selling, concentrated effort just in the last few years. And confidence is a huge thing. So if I can leave you all with anything, it's like, have the confidence to go out there and do what we're talking about, because there's not enough people doing it. And so you might be worried, like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to comment. I don't know what to post. You just have to go out there and do it and realize that you're the only one judging yourself. Like you're looking too far into it. You're thinking too much. Just go out there, do it, engage, build relationships, send messages, send voice notes, send videos, like act like you would in person at a conference to people, right? Like, always think of that. Like, what would I say to this person if I was face to face with them? And you just have to be consistent. But the biggest thing that, that I see over and over again is just the confidence factor of like, I'm scared. I don't know what to say. What if I say the wrong thing? And it's just when you get in the habit of doing it time and time again, it just becomes like second nature and easy, and you build your confidence up over time.
Love it. Well said, Mandy. Thank you so much for coming on. Folks, go follow her on LinkedIn. Got some great information around social selling. Thanks again, Mandy. Safe travels. All right, we got Zoe here today. Hey, Zoe.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going well. Thanks for coming on. And Zoe, honestly, there's probably like 20 things I could ask you to share about, but we have you on the dock to talk about how to maximize conferences and booking meetings at conferences. So let's dive right in. What are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts, but I think the real trick about like conference and event follow-up, maximizing the value of those events, like 90% of what you need for follow-up to book a demo happens before the event occurs. And just like anything else in sales, like whether you're, prepping for cold calls or demos or presentations, like the power really is in the prep. So I kind of want to talk about, how do you prep for a conference, for a wraparound event that usually happens at a conference, like a happy hour your company throws, on the back end of something like a SaaSter or an Inbound where you're inviting prospects. And the way that you prep is going to depend on the type of event and your specific organizational structure. But I have a couple tips that I used as a rep and frameworks that I'll offer, and hopefully people can kind of take them and apply them to their situation. So my first tip is you should be working, like make marketing your best friend and figure out who the heck is going to be in the room beforehand. And then find out, can I invite my prospects? So for a conference, maybe you can't invite people to the conference itself, but if your team is throwing a happy hour the first night of the conference, you can invite your prospects to that happy hour. So you should be coordinating with your marketing team. Hey, this is my top list of accounts. These are the people local to that city. I would really like an invite to these 3 people. Can we make sure that we send it out? I'll send it out personally. However, you can coordinate that with your team. It's just really important that, like, if you have the opportunity to be in person and be in front of your prospects, like, be in front of them. And they don't necessarily have to be attending the conference. If they're a local, like I recently went to a conference and we threw a dinner on the back end of it. And there were 3 prospects that we invited that were top tier accounts that weren't at the conference at all, but they were, locals to that city. So take advantage of being in person whenever you can. The thing about if it's a conference is you may not get to see the entire, invite list, even if you're a sponsor. You're not going to see all 10,000 people who registered, but you can definitely see who's sponsoring the conference. So I would say go to the conference website and look through every single sponsor. Cross-reference that with your account list. Okay, I know that 15 of my top accounts have a booth at this conference. And then try and figure out, okay, like maybe their sales leader is going to be here. Maybe not your perfect prospect will be there, but how can you get in front of that logo and start building a relationship? So I would make note of every single potential account that is going to be sponsoring that conference and get in front of them. And then I would also invite people from those logos to your wraparound events as well. Even if you can't get like your number 1 prospect, maybe you can get the sales manager and you sell to directors of sales, or maybe you can get their marketing manager, but you sell to RevOps. Can you get an in with these companies? And yeah, the conference website is like a great way to do a little bit of that, like back channeling, finding some of those top accounts and cross-referencing it with your list. You should also go visit their booths and say, what's up? I would not go to their booth and pitch ever. I think that's kind of rude personally. Like they're trying to sell, you're trying to sell, I get it, but like go say hi, listen to their pitch, have a conversation, invite them to your happy hour. That's a good way to start building some relationships. But yeah, like the magic of follow-up is having a reason to follow up. And there are 2 things you need. One, I would suggest you build your follow-up sequence, at least the framework of it, before the conference even happens. Have like a sequence skeleton or, your 3 touches that you want to do. Have something loosely written before the conference occurs so that when you get back the next day, you can start running that sequence. But you also need to be able to create a reason to follow up. And I kind of have 3 C's that I use for memorable follow-up. One is conversation. If I have a really good conversation with somebody, I'm taking notes on my phone. I love to ask the question, what's something you're looking forward to in the next 90 days? And somebody might be like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon, or, oh, my daughter is having her first baby, or, oh, whatever. Put that in the notes and then put a calendar reminder on your calendar. If they say, hey, my kids are going back to school in 2 weeks. I can't wait. I'm going to get a break. Now you have like a piece of relevance and like personalization that you can mention just super briefly in your email when you follow up with them of like, oh yeah, we talked about this. Like, I hope the kids are enjoying the week back at school or something. Like something legitimate that you talked about. Don't stretch it too far. Don't get weird with it. But I've had a lot of success asking people what they're looking forward to and then sending them like a good luck the day before their marathon or something like that. So conversation notes are critical. I keep them on my phone. Content. Can I take a picture with the person? Can I film a video with the person? I'm so sorry. I don't know what Zoom has done with this update.
I love that.
Always gives a thumbs up. It's gotten weird. But can I take like a piece of content with them that I then can send to them afterwards? I love recording a video, chopping it up into something that they could then post themselves. Like if I could get a video of them, like giving me their elevator pitch or something like that, give it to my editor, have them chop it into like a TikTok style content, and then send it to them a week later and be like, hey, just like we made this for you, no pressure to use it, but I wanted you to have it because you looked so good and you sounded so great. And I think this is a great piece of content. great chatting with you, whatever. So you have a reason to follow up. You're giving them something. And then the third thing would be context gifting. So similar to the conversation and the content, you know, if you talked about something, if they were like, oh, that thing I'm really excited about is my first granddaughter is going to be born in 3 weeks. Can you send them like a onesie or something? There's interesting ways to use direct mail after interacting with somebody in person, using some real personalization and, again, having a reason to follow up. But you need to create that follow-up moment when you're in person. Be thinking about the follow-up as you're talking to them. I prefer to have a meaningful conversation and hit them up about a demo after the event, but I've also had success booking a demo right on site if it makes sense. But if I'm going to follow up with them after the event, I better have a reason to. So you want to create one of those memorable moments, and I leverage those 3 C's: conversation, content, and context gifting. What am I at with time? I've been rambling.
You got about, no, you've been great. This is awesome. You got about 1 more minute. I just love, first of all, just like some of the 2 things that stood out so far is like, number one of the best questions as like to be a good friend, a non-judgmental friend, is just ask somebody like what they're looking forward to in the future. And I love like, that's a great like way just to build a relationship with somebody, to figure out what they're excited about. Oh, I'm having technical problems now. So I love that. And then also having the content, you're giving them something of value. Like that's just so cool. And I mean, it takes a little bit of effort, like as far as creating content for them. So much of folks are, create content at an event for ourselves, which is great. But I love how you kind of turn that upside down and giving it to them. Really powerful stuff. Anything else in the last minute you want to share with the audience that we haven't talked about?
I guess like the recap of like, if you take away, 3 things from this is like, partner with your marketing team to identify those top accounts ahead of time, research who's going to be in the room. And one of the best things we did at Apollo is we started identifying top prospects for our own hosted events. So we just put like a little sticker on their badge. That's it. Just like a little sticker. And that's how we know like, oh, this is a top account. And so anyone on the team who's talking to them is just like aware of that as we're chatting. It doesn't necessarily mean that we approach the conversation super differently. It just means that we're like thinking about it in terms of, okay, like we've identified this person as somebody who would probably be able to use our tool. So that may shift the conversation slightly. And then finally, I love telling people what the subject line of my follow-up email is going to be. And I usually use like an inside joke that we created during the conversation. So if we were talking about it and they were like, oh, like I got these hot pink running shoes for my marathon, my subject line for when I follow up with them is hot pink running shoes. And it's like, I'm going to try and take a note of something that they said during the conversation as the subject line for the follow-up. And that's just something I keep in my phone notes.
Oh, Zoe, so good. Awesome stuff. I'm going to rewatch the recording of your session for sure. Just some really cool takeaways along with Will and Mandy. Thanks again for coming on, Zoe. Take care.
Cool.
All right. We got Jesse. What's up,
Hey,
Jesse?
how we doing? Good to talk to you, Taylor.
Doing
How you
well.
been?
Doing well. Thanks for coming on. Really excited for your session on kind of how to avoid the spam folder and talking about email infrastructure. We've seen lots of new changes with Google and Yahoo and things that are affecting folks, and just the oversaturation of our inboxes. So I'd love to hear, lay it out for us. What are some best practices for email infrastructure?
Today, really, what it is it's it's more about keeping your volume low. Really, where you're tied down right now, where a lot of people are a little bit confused is right now it's your domain name that carries the reputation. So you could definitely do a lot of damage really as a company if you're not watching this. One of the things that I've seen a lot of challenges is a lot of the sales engagement platforms out there are sort of encouraging you to use your primary domain name, which it doesn't really matter how much you spent on that tool or whatever it is. It's just not a good idea to send kind of low quality cold emails with your primary domain name, right? It's gonna get you in trouble. You're not gonna see it right away, right? What's gonna happen is it'll start to turn into more of like a shadow ban where you're sort of like not in the inbox anywhere, but you don't know it. No one's telling you. You got something on your face, but nobody's telling you or whatever, right? It's kind of that analogy. But this is happening a lot more. Teams are sort of getting their sequencer, and of course, everybody has pipeline goals, and I think that's very fair that they're doing it. But what's really happening right now is teams are just, it's really bizarre because they're doing it with their primary domain name in most cases that I see out there today still. So that's the biggest problem right now, still facing sales teams with email.
Yeah, 100%, especially small organizations that don't have the domain reputation or the volume or the clout, that maybe Salesforce has from a domain standpoint. So what are your thoughts on how to solve that?
Yeah, so there's a few ways to solve it. Number one, if you're going to look at it, you really have to look at it as like a ratio, right? So it's like you have all of these other emails going out of your company. You have your forgot password, your bulk email from marketing, your company just regular communication with vendors, HR, offer letters, things like that. That's all kind of good quality email, right? Like that's emails that you want to be sending out of your company. No problem. You're going to get at least a high enough engagement rate. It's not going to hurt you. Nobody's going to mark those as spam. When people start marking it as spam, which by the way, if you want to get rid of spam, just do everybody a favor and hit report as spam. Like that's the best way to do it. Don't try to install something that like sort of circumvents it or puts you into a donation. Just do what the internet tells you to do and hit report as spam. So what the best way around it right now is if you do want to send more emails, you're going to have to really start to invest in really a lot of people are doing it alternative domain names, right? So they're starting to set up multiple domain names. Now, this is where it gets to a little bit of a discussion around two areas. One being security, because when you do this, you do have to downgrade the security of your company, right? Like for the tools that are doing more of the warm up, right? They're sort of using, there's some tactics that Google is not really cool with, or Microsoft. Like they don't want you using these tactics. They don't want you warming up your emails and things like that. So you end up using a lower security model on your sort of connection. Now, I think it's a great idea. Like if you're going to do it, like go for it, right? It's one of those things, but it's a performance and brand thing too. You want to make sure that, you could do a lot to get yourself out there on social media, but is it really where you're at? And I think some companies it is, right? Like where I'm seeing it really work well is founder-led email. That is a very nice area to do it. Now, where it's really starting to struggle, I've seen is it's sort of like the empty offer, sort of late stage. Maybe used to be a unicorn, maybe not anymore, or maybe they're still kind of close to it. Late stage, and they're kind of just struggling. They're sort of sending these emails. They're just sort of zombie land, right? Like it's a little bit bizarre that they're still doing it. Now, the downside now is, I know Google pulled back a lot of the teeth in that sort of, but we're starting to see a lot of changes, and we have we're monitoring about 55,000 inboxes right now. So we have a pretty good visibility of what's going on, and they're definitely cracking down. If you get several complaints, report as spam, you're gonna start to see problems, and they're gonna keep going. And my prediction, right now, the worst thing that we're seeing is they're starting to do these lockouts where you've got to actually appeal. So not only does that person not have their inbox for a couple of days, right? They get locked out of it, right? They don't get any company emails, so nobody can get through to them and all, that. So, there are some experts in the field, and there's a lot of people out there that are sort of talking about it. And, I have some people that I've some great content that I've seen out there, but, just be careful with a lot of these growth tools. You really have to understand what you're doing. You can definitely downgrade your security. Like I said, there's some complexity on setting these up. You do have to kind of, go around the Google sort of authentication system to do it. So these are some things that you really want to talk to somebody who really knows what they're doing on this, rather than just say, oh, let me just go grab the quick, app that's in the App Store, right? Those are some of the things that I think people are really struggling with right now.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing. Anything else? Any best practices? So like, let's say somebody are looking to set up secondary domains.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on DMARC, SPF, obviously email warming up, stuff like that? Any thoughts there?
Yeah. So a couple things that are really working well right now. So I would say, first of all, if you're going to do the domains, right, you could definitely pile out a bunch of domains and then send a bunch of emails. Like there's no question that works. It's not going to impact your domain name. So it's a safer way to go, right? For that, if you can get the security thing handled, you're fine. However, where people are really making an impact is when they're starting to do a lot more of these, like, I'd say relevant campaigns. What I mean by that is like they're putting together spreadsheets, or some people are using tools like Clay, Rose, Gigasheets, some of these tools that can sort of bring in APIs and relevant information that's real time, and they can bring that into their campaign and be very prescriptive or sort of like relevant in this reach out, right? Like you would never know. That's what's funny. I always laugh at people who are like, oh, the automation can't really write these emails very well. You probably haven't gotten one from somebody that, I've been working with, or maybe Eric or some of the other people that are really good at this. But there's definitely ways, right? You can real time pull in the data, and you can pull it in from any source, right? Like LinkedIn or any of these sources, and you can pull this into these campaigns. And what I'm finding is it's really aligned to a lot of these people who have realized, wow, I can get into the inbox. So it's really all that matters right now. I mean, the message itself is so secondary to actually landing in the primary inbox right now. And I kind of have been talking about this for a good 3 years now, after I was sort of fired for challenging our email system of spam, and then I started my own company. And it's just the little things that matter. The details do matter. And I think you got to start following people that are doing a lot of this, like automation relevant. I'm going to be starting to put out some content on this. But also, when you're doing the health of these domains, keep it under 50 a day. I would say the warm-ups you want to be doing at least, we usually do about 35 to 45% warm-up balance. So if it's like 50 emails out, you want to send 35 to 45%. But if you're not getting a 5% reply rate, don't keep going, right? Like you do have that power now that you're off your primary domain, and you definitely could do it, right? But it's better to not do it, right? Like find out why you're not over a 5%, right? Are you not asking a relevant question? Like, is there something else? Are you not targeting the right audience? Don't just abuse it there. Now, when you do get one that works, this is the fun part. When you get one that works, throw the hammer down on it and let it go, because, I've had a few of these that they just work. You're seeing like, 10% response, and you're seeing like 20 to 25% positive, and then you've hit the audience right, and that prints, right? Like that is where this, and if you've never seen this happen, it's pretty fascinating. I've ran a couple campaigns that you hit this stroke of genius, and you're like, whoa, this is pretty crazy, because you're not really doing anything there, right? And you're being relevant. So
I love it, Jesse. I love the combination, even back to Will's, session on writing and having personalization and having copy and emails that are relevant and unique, in combination with the technical side, right? Making sure you have the right technical stuff. And I've gotten into the weeds of setting up, and I did some outbound invites to this event, and learned a lot. It's very fascinating, the world we're in with that. One question before we finish up, Hank asked, how can an SDR figure out if his emails are being marked as spam?
Yeah, there's actually there's an email address. At least get the basics right. I think I sent it over to you. Maybe you could leave it in this. I could put that over to you, but it'll send you an automated response. What's wrong with your email? If you want to try that. The other way you can do it, I'll tell you. This is another one quick thing. You don't know, actually. So you can find out if your settings are right, but that's not going to tell you if they're getting marked as spam. So there's no way to really detect if they're getting marked as spam. Google does not tell you. Their guidance right now for everybody that's wondering is to check out the Postmaster, which is very vague. And there's a lot of even question on if it's even tracking if you're sending to other Google workspaces. It sounds like a lot of it's just about their personal, their Gmail accounts, which, it's like, okay, well, so they really don't care if you're doing, they've kind of gone back a few steps, but, they are locking accounts out. We are seeing that more. I'll tell you where you're going to really know. If you're starting to see that message where they say, hey, you got to go check with your IT team. We think you might be spamming or whatever. If you get that one, that's a red flag. If you get the next one says, your IT team is told they've got to appeal the suspension. And when that happens, that is when you probably need to try to outsource this function in your company. That part, if you are on that, if they have to click appeal, now you're going to be off the system for 2 days and you've really disrupted business, right? This is a good time to start, outsourcing that function. I would not continue to do the cold email systems that you're doing. You're either emailing the wrong people, you're doing the same domain name over and over. There's just an infinite number. I mean, I've seen the ones who are just emailing, Google's top customers and spam, like hardcore spamming to like Honeywell, right? Like, which is one of their bigger customers. Like, you wouldn't want to do that, right? You get caught doing that one day, they're going to block 2 or 3 of your accounts.
Totally.
And it's really sad. And by the way, it does work very well for event marketing. So think about other use cases like what you're doing here. You could drive pretty significant traffic and also be very personal and, think of it as a new ad platform for you. You don't always have to get that meeting. You're not going to, maybe it's to distribute brand awareness or reach, but don't be annoying on there, right? Like I have as many protections against spam and cold emails as, I'm sending a lot of cold emails, but I'm also blocking them as well. So that's it, really.
I love it, Jesse. Good stuff. Yeah, I put that email to check for the spam in the chat. Thanks for coming on. I love your end as far as use it as a new platform for even like thought leadership, webinar invite, sharing content. It doesn't have to be about meetings. It can be about brand awareness, building your brand, building that relationship, and another touch point.
Yeah,
thanks for coming on, Jesse.
Thanks a lot for having me, and I appreciate it all the time.
Take care. All right, we got Matt. What's up, Matt?
What's up, T? How you doing, man?
Doing well. It's been a minute. Thanks for coming on. We want to talk all about getting warm intros. So let's lay it out.
For sure. Hi, everybody. Great to meet you all. I have the honor of crossing over the midpoint of our event today. So I want to give everybody permission. If you've been sitting this whole time, stand up, stretch it out, get yourself feeling good because you got another half of really great information. And my name's Matt Liebman. I work at Revenue IO. And like Taylor said, I am here to talk to you about getting warm intros. I'm going to break it down in 2 different ways. One reason that you'd want warm intros is because you want to work somewhere. You're applying for a new job, which I know is really relevant to a lot of people right now. Another reason that you'd want a warm intro is because you're trying to open a sales opportunity. So there's 2 different paths here, and we'll talk a little bit about both of them. The first thing that's really, really important to share with everybody here, and I will preface what I'm saying. These are my opinions. I don't know facts. I only have opinions, as we all do. But in my opinion, cold applications do not work in 2024. If you are on this call and you're looking for a new role or you're going to be looking for a new role over the next year, a cold application is not going to work. Especially if you're in the tech sector, like so many of us are. The amount of layoffs that we've seen, the amount of candidates that are out there, it is very, very different than it used to be. So how are you going to earn that job that you want, that you know you're perfect for? The way you're going to do that is you're going to find your way in through a warm introduction, not through a cold application. So the platform, we've all talked about it a lot today. We're talking about LinkedIn. And when we're talking about LinkedIn, I'm going to give you some advice that has worked really well for me and has worked for my friends. You might disagree with it, but I'm going to say it anyway. The normal person that is trying to get hired and is trying to earn an intro via LinkedIn, what do, Taylor? They look up who the hiring manager is. Or they look up the VP or the CRO of that function, and they'll send a video. They might use Will's framework to send a really compelling message and find out how they're going to get to the front of the line. If I'm that VP of sales and I'm looking for an AE, that's not going to put you to the front of the line unless your message is perfect. And it might be. Follow Will's framework, maybe it is. So there's another way to get to the front of the line that, in my opinion, is a lot easier. So what I do is I add people on LinkedIn that are local to me, regardless of the job that they have. So I live in Portland, Oregon, just like UT. We're having really crazy snow and ice right now. When I am trying to get into a new company or I'm trying to get that introduction, I go to that company and I see who lives in Portland. And that is who I'm adding on LinkedIn. If there's nobody in Portland, I'm adding the people that live in Oregon. And why am I doing that? There is a natural psychological barrier that comes down when somebody lives in the same place as you. If you meet a stranger and they tell me I live in Portland, I instantly have trust for that person. It's illogical. It doesn't make sense. There's no reason that I should trust them, but it is the way that we psychologically work. So that's step one for these intros is you want to be adding people that live where you live. You're going to get a really high acceptance rate, and you're going to have that barrier of who is this stranger be lowered because you live in the same place. So that's step one. Okay, now I've got 6 people that live in Portland that have accepted my LinkedIn request at the company that I want to work for. So what am I going to do next? I am going to send them a DM that is a video. That video, I've tested this with both platforms. That video needs to be using LinkedIn's native video capabilities, which means you got to do it on your phone. I've tried doing it via Loom, and if you do it via Loom, you can know if they've watched it or not. You get a third of the responses using an outsourced video platform versus using LinkedIn's native. Why? Because when you open that DM in LinkedIn, all you got to do is hit play. If you did it from their native platform, if you use a link, they've got to go to it. It just has a psychological effect on people. It makes them not want to reply and watch that video. So you're on your phone. You can't record LinkedIn videos on DMs on your computer. You've got to do it on your phone. You're recording a video introducing yourself. You have a limit of 2 minutes. The LinkedIn platform will not let you go past 2 minutes on your video. This is another tip that I think works. It's my opinion. Walk around while you make this video. Sounds silly, sounds stupid. I'm telling you, it has a positive impact. It feels not threatening. When I am walking, you see me outside, you see the background behind me changing. It creates, again, this ability of trust. Because what are we doing? We're trying to get a stranger to do you a favor, straight up. And what is that favor, by the way? You're going to ask them to refer you in. So your video, you're limited to 2 minutes. You introduce yourself for 30 to 45 seconds. You spend 15 to 20 seconds explaining why you want the role and why you'll be awesome. And then you humbly ask for a referral, where you literally say the words, Taylor, I know we don't know each other, but I wanted to humbly ask you if you would refer me into this position. Then you use a really important line, which is you say, I'm guessing that when I get hired, it would include a referral bonus for you. It's important to include that because the vast majority of companies will give a referral bonus if you refer somebody that gets hired. And then you just say, I know that we don't know each other super well. If you have any questions about my qualifications, please let me know and I'd love to explain them to you. But if you'd be willing to refer me in, I think it's going to help me land this job that I'm really excited about. So those are my strategies. If you're trying to get a new job, you add people that are local to you, you send a video, you walk around while you're on that video, and you humbly ask for that referral. Now, if it's for sales, if you're trying to get in for sales, if you're trying to get a meeting with the company, there's a couple things I do differently. I do still add locally, by the way. Again, we're trying to lower that barrier of you're a stranger. I'm adding locally to people and trying to ask them if they'll make that introduction. But before I send them a message, I turn on their notifications on LinkedIn so that I know every time they post. So I know, okay, this is the company I'm going to want to meet with. I got accepted by these people in Portland, and I'm liking and commenting on at least 5 posts before I make my ask. That's because now I am familiar and my ask is going to have more credence. The last thing that I do before I send that message asking for that introduction to book a demo with somebody that's in a different department is I make sure that the way I open my conversation in DMs with that person is with a compliment. It could be something that has to do with an award that they've won, that their company has won. It could be something about one of their posts. Holy cow, it was so cool to see that you did that. Thank you for sharing. I thought it really inspiring. There's no ask on the end of it. It's just opening that conversation so we're building that trust. And then once the DMs are going back and forth and you've built a little bit of trust, then you again humbly ask for that introduction. So I think I'm about at my time, but that's the way that I use LinkedIn, and I try to make sure that I can find some great introductions.
Oh, Matt, awesome. Yeah, I love the perspective of connecting locally. Obviously, that's how we met. And I think that's such an underutilized opportunity because I never see it happening. I never get invites from people locally, ever. It's always somebody from the other side of the planet or other side of the country. And I think about that a lot too. Like, how do you build your network locally? And I think there's so much power. Originally, LinkedIn was that way, right? Originally, LinkedIn was super local. And we're actually seeing, even from the algorithm, we're seeing it going back more towards not necessarily local, but first connections, right? First degree connections and creating, I see a lot more content for my first degree connections, not so much for people I follow, right? So I think there's a lot of power in that and a lot of what you said there. Anything in like 30 seconds or so, any last tips or anything in closing to wrap us up?
I think just to close, I feel like, I don't know if I'm seeing something different, but the chat's pretty quiet, but we have a lot of people here. Throw where you are in the chat, if you don't mind. And if you see somebody that is where you are, shoot them a connection. And let's start to get those local networks moving so that we can all see where we are. And trust me, you're going to get exponentially more people accepting your requests when you ask for requests from people that live in the same place.
I love it, Matt. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate your insights. And yeah, take care. Thanks again. All right, we got Cliff. What's up, Cliff?
Hey, how's it going, Taylor?
Doing well. Thanks for coming on. You're going to be talking to us all about how to tap into niche communities. And even Mandy was talking about maybe more the macro communities, the large communities, social selling on like LinkedIn. Cliff, you're going to kind of bring us some insights into how to build drive revenue with tapping into more of the niche kind of private communities. So lay it out for us, Cliff. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. My name's Cliff. I'm the CRO at Carabiner Group, and we've grown pretty substantially over the last few years, focusing on that community-led growth motion. A lot of that shows up in places like Slack nowadays, but this is not something that's like brand new, right? This stuff I was doing years ago, pre-pandemic, showing up locally, right? Typically at those conferences, and if your company wouldn't pay for you to go to the conference, it was showing up at the bars and the restaurants and the places and sniping the people that had the appropriate badge, right? But building authentic relationships with people, getting to know them. Now that we're in a post-pandemic world, we do that in places like Thursday Night Sales and Sales Assembly and Pavilion and RevOps Co-op and Rev Genius and WizOps and on and on and on and on. Right? The secret to that is showing up consistently and actually building relationships. I think all too often people are very willing to go into these places to try to reap some type of commercial reward, but don't realize that no one wants to be sold to. Right? So you have to show up consistently with empathy, be helpful, and actually provide value to the community. And by doing so, you start building out a brand, people start knowing you, and you start generating the word of mouth and referral business that so often drives most B2C brands, right? There's definitely this undercurrent within B2B of folks wanting to get there. And I think we've seen a lot of that over the last few years. Email is becoming really difficult, as Jesse's talked about. Outbound is something that most people aren't well trained on, and there's still a lot of need for that. Social selling is still, I think, in its infancy. There's a lot going on, but you need to be able to reach people and build those relationships, and that's what really drives the business, and that's what helped Carabiner grow so quickly over the last 2 years.
That's great, Cliff. So it sounds like obviously finding those communities where your ICP, your ideal customer profile lives, engaging with them authentically, with empathy. How about some practical things? What does it look like? Answering questions, getting on a one-on-one call and providing value, no pitching. Tell me about your thoughts and what have you seen has worked to build those long-term relationships and drive revenue?
Yeah, no pitching, 100%, right? With places like Pavilion and WizOps, the way we leaned in originally, and the way I leaned in originally was, I've come from almost 2 decades of go-to-market experience, varying industries. I'd lay in and just offer advice. It wasn't a, hey, I'm going to solve this problem for you. It was, I've seen this or dealt with it in X, Y, or Z fashion before. I'm happy to workshop that idea with you. And see if we can help you come to a conclusion, and we'll meet each other in the process. And it was never an ask of, oh, we do this, that, or we can build this for you. What that ended up turning into was people being interested in reciprocating. Maybe they knew some, and that was, they ask at the end of a conversation, it always inevitably be, oh, what can we do for you? I'm like, well, if you know anyone that needs help with RevOps, if you could remember my name, that'd be fantastic. And I can tell you the amount of times that folks have reached back out 3 months later, 4 months later. I just had one last week, 18 months later. Right? So these things, do it the right way. Right? It's about building the relationships, treating people like people. And good things do come. If you're looking for really practical ways to go in and do it, Slack has a keyword notification. You can go into the preferences, set up your keyword, and you can respond to those keywords when they show up, right? It's super, super straightforward. To the point where I was booking on average 83 meetings a month using that as a tactic. Very easy. If you want me to show you how to do it, we set up really easy. But you do that, couple that with a DM, and yeah, again, you're not asking for time. You're offering your expertise and your help. Don't go in there selling. There's nothing that'll ruin your personal brand and your image works.
I love it, Cliff. And any advice you have? So I know there's a lot of situations where I know a lot of folks that are in the cybersecurity industry that are on this event, and they may be an account executive and they're selling to, a CISO, a chief information security officer. And they may be asking really technical questions. How do you navigate when they're asking a question that's beyond maybe your expertise? How do you bridge that gap? Do you bring in resources? Do you find somebody that's the expert? Any thoughts there for that? I know it's kind of a unique situation, but any thoughts there?
So what I would say to that in any situation is you should be striving to learn all of those answers. If you want to be the expert and have your customers and folks in the community see you as an expert, you need to take the time to actually put in the work. Like, this is not an overnight thing, right? We had fantastic results in communities, but it took on average 4 to 5 months for us to get a first deal out of community. And then it started building up. The other thing to remember with this too is that it's not just digital. Everyone seems to be going back to in-person. All my CRO buddies who are having success right now in top of funnel, the majority of the deals are either coming from word of mouth referral from people that they're meeting in person, local events, dinners, conferences. So getting back out in person and building human face-to-face connections is vitally important. That's why I'm where I am today. I'm at home in New York, seeing folks. I'm going to be in Scottsdale next week, seeing folks, and be in San Francisco the week after that, because the face-to-face is so important.
Love it, Cliff. Awesome. Any final thoughts in the next 30 seconds? Anything to leave folks with that we haven't covered?
I think the biggest thing is just treat people the way you want to be treated, right? The golden rule exists for a reason. If you can remember that and to think long term, the things that you do today, especially if you're early in your career, will have a lasting impact. If you do things the right way and focus on a long-term plan of success, that will lead you to the best outcomes.
I love that. The golden rule. Yeah, I think that's so powerful when so much of marketing and sales is not that, right? We're trying to, hack our way into a meeting versus actually treating people how they wanted to be treated. So using some empathy. So cool, Cliff. Thanks so much for coming on. Safe travels. Really great insights. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Take care. Bye.
All right. We got Laura. What's up, Laura?
Hey. How's it going?
Doing well.
Can you hear me?
Well. Thanks for, I can hear you.
No.
Hear you great.
Wait, I'll just remove this one then.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear it. I just had to remove this thing. Yeah, what's up? How's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for coming on. I'm sure you could talk a lot about selling in general and outbound and all that fun topics, but I have a unique topic for you, which is how to do marketing as a seller. And what I've noticed from your LinkedIn is you're a seller, obviously, but you also do amazing marketing, whether it's creating content, social selling, and just doing really good marketing. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on first, what impact has that been on your career as a seller, figuring out some of the marketing tactics and programs, and then maybe some best practices of how to get started, of like how to create content or how to go do events or all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was a very typical salesperson. I was at Gartner, I was at Red Hat, and you do the stuff that you're told to do as a salesperson. And then I joined Dream Data, which has a very typical CMO that is maybe atypical, but he's very numbers driven as well. Kind of lesser creative as you would expect a CMO to be. But then I figured out once we started to do LinkedIn stuff that people know us for right now, was that people, as Cliff is saying, would prefer to be treated like people. Like, treat me the way I, like, as a normal person would be treated. Catch me where I am at the social platforms I'm at, or at any of the Slack communities I'm at, and so on. So try to put yourself as a salesperson into the shoes of your buyers. With AI coming over and so on, everybody's tired of the boring stuff. Like, oh, we at Dream Data, we sell this and that, and digital transformation, and da 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 da. Like, I scrolled past by just before I was even saying this message. Nobody cared. But if you can figure out what your buyers care about and start to talk that language, not just what you're selling. This is the key thing. So I'm selling to marketers, and it's not only attribution that is in their heads. They care about campaigns, they care about events, they care about scroll stopping stuff. There is a lot of stuff that they care about. But in addition to that, they care about the person that is going to be in front of them when they have the problem that you solve. If you're saying to financial professionals, you would say, oh, they're not on LinkedIn, they're somewhere else. Oh, they are on LinkedIn. And if you were writing about topics that interest them, not just that specific tool that you're selling, that will stop their scroll as well. So kind of think about it as not as a one-to-one seller. How do I shovel this into the eyes and the inboxes of all of my buyers, but catch them there when it's delightful, when it's nice, when it's kind of, if it's not expected, it might be nice, but at the same time, then they can choose to scroll past by it. And that is the way that you would meet them as a person. And this has been driving most of the stuff that we're doing at Dream Data, especially with LinkedIn, with events and so on. It's entertaining. It's not dry sales stuff. And I see a lot of salespeople moving away from that kind of, oh, my manager told me I need to send 100 emails and do 100 calls. That's what I'm doing. And this is the sequence and so on and so forth. Even your sequence can be creative and scroll stopping. And imagine if your sequence that you're creating is coupled with the audience you're building on a platform, social platform where your buyer's at. Maybe they're on Reddit, Twitter, whatever that is. But in addition to the sequence that you have done, hopefully it's very nicely crafted, very targeted. And then sometimes you meet them somewhere else. It's like, wait, that name I've seen before. I've seen this person on a video. So put the personality in it. It will not hurt. It will only help you be a better salesperson and actually enjoy to be that salesperson as well, because sales can be very, very tough once in a while. Well, then make it fun. And then people will like meeting you as well.
I love that. I love that. Making it fun for yourself and for other folks. And I think one of the most powerful things I've ever had was when I got on a sales call and the person says, I feel like I already know you because they've seen you so much online. Right. And I've had that happen a couple times where I'm like, and I'll never forget that moment, because this is like, oh my gosh, this is that power you're talking about, right? Of having, being in multiple places, connecting with people at scale. And then I think from a marketer's perspective, thinking about, like you said, scroll stopping, right? Thinking about the context of how you're reaching folks and understanding that we are all fighting for attention ultimately, right? And attention is what marketing is all about. and getting their attention is like a lot of the battle, right? And keeping it and engaging them. I'm curious your thoughts on, folks, marketers, and I've seen a trend of this, Laura, of folks, AEs and SDRs creating content and hosting events, webinars, and so cool. I love the trend. Where can you see folks they're like, hey, you know what? I've done the typical outbound stuff, but I'd love to kind of do some marketing things. How can they get their feet wet, gain some skill, and any thoughts there on how to get started?
I think an easy way to dip your toes into this is to try video to start with, because it's one of the very intimidating things if you don't do that. If you're not doing video, you will think, oh, what will that finance manager think about me if they saw that video of me? Well, you don't have the audience. That finance manager will not see that anyway. and you will kind of start to figure out what kind of things your audience likes. So that's one of the things. And at the same time, couple up with your marketing. Figure out what is it that they're doing, and is there anything different that you could be doing in addition to the sequences that you're doing in any tools that you're writing and stuff like that. Like when you're talking like salespeople creating events, well, this is beautifully crafted what Melissa has done, because she's selling to salespeople. Salespeople love to follow influencers, and let me couple that together. So she learned what is it that my buyers care about, and for me to get in front of them, besides that it is probably going to become her side gig, she's attracting the audience in a fun way. And think about the same for your buyer, whoever you're selling to. Where is it that they're gathering? What is it that they care about? And try it out in small scale, because nobody's watching. While that you're doing this, nobody's watching. You're not blasting huge emails. You don't have a huge audience, but you will build that up very, very slowly. So just do it. It's like if you see something inspiring, or another good idea is to find the influencers or thought leaders that your buyers follow, and have a look at what type of content they're creating or what type of things they're doing. So you can maybe mimic some of that stuff, or try to do your own thing inspired by it, and see if doing a little tweak on videos or voice or picture, whatever that might be, or side events, might be the way that you would delight your buyers and be that different type of either salesperson or a salesperson coupled up with marketing who works in that beautiful dynamic.
Oh, so good. I love that. And I love, looking at obviously the content that your ideal customer is consuming, look at the influencers and replicate or do a variation of that. Because first, it's probably working, right? Actually, that's one SEO hack for like YouTube. If you want to rank high on YouTube, go look at all the folks that have really high ranked YouTube videos and just copy their title, change it just a little bit, and you'll rank super high too. So it's the same kind of methodology of, don't try to reinvent the wheel, right? Just do your own little spin. Like this format of events, I actually got this from Gary Vaynerchuk, and I took this fast-paced format, did my own little tweak of it, and it's so far going pretty well for the first one. A couple technical issues, but anything you can close us out with, Laura? Last 30 seconds. Anything we haven't covered yet?
Yes, events. Remember, if you're doing events, side events on small scale or your own events, try to always adapt the same too. Like, don't do the same thing everybody does. Then it will be so much easier, especially if you're selling in a niche section. If you're selling to marketing and sales, there's a lot of creativity that you have to do to be that a different type, because a lot of companies are doing different stuff because they're creative. But if you're selling to, I don't know, legal or something else, then there is so much you can do, because the boringness of events out there, it's kind of huge.
I love that. Well said. Yeah, especially in the B2B world, there's lots of opportunity to be creative. Thanks so much, Laura. Really appreciate you coming on. Take care. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Taylor. Bye-bye.
All right. We got Tyler. What's up, Tyler?
What's up, man?
How you doing?
Doing good. Can't complain. How about yourself?
Doing well. I got to tell you, if I had a nickel for every single time somebody called me Tyler, I wouldn't need to work. So my mom even called me Tyler when I was like 6 years old, and I will not forget it. So kudos to you for having a cooler name. And thanks for coming on. I've seen a lot of your content on LinkedIn around one-to-one video and creating, and even in this event, folks have mentioned using video to get warm introductions, using video and all this different formats. I'd love you to lay it out. What are your thoughts on creating these one-to-one videos, hyper-personalized videos, and what have you seen work, and what's the power of it?
Yeah, I think videos are super powerful. I think the one important thing about video is like that's actually your chance to not only showcase your product, but showcase like you as a person. I think a lot of times that we get lost in emails and cold calls that we lose the personality behind it and we lose like the human touch. So I think with the beauty of video, like that's the one opportunity you get to actually show like your personality. You actually get to show that smile, you get to show that energy and show them how passionate you are about that product. And one thing I even picked up on is like, even if you don't have the best script in the world, as long as like you're showing that you're happy and you're genuinely excited about this product, that prospect is more than likely going to take the meeting just because like they see how passionate you are. So it's like, why not take a chance on this guy? Like he seems pretty passionate about it. So he's talking pretty strongly about it. Like, why not give him that opportunity? So I definitely think videos are super powerful, and I highly recommend everybody to hop on that train.
Very cool. How can folks get started? What are some things, some low-hanging fruit of like application of when to use kind of one-to-one personalized video?
I got you.
Yeah, we'll start there.
I actually made like a little presentation. Maybe I am over prepared for this.
No, let's do it. Go through it. Yeah, please.
Just wanted to give people kind of an idea of like what I do just to get more watches. So of course, like just going into video prospecting, like I said, it's just like being able to. Oh, can you see my screen for one?
Yep, you look great.
So yeah, just being able to just showcase like yourself and your product. And before we hop straight into videos, I just want to talk about like some of the biggest blockers that people run into, and that's like wasted time. Like why people give up because they're wasting so much time on these videos because they're not getting responses. Emails are going to spam. They're not getting delivered. And I think those can be like the biggest heartbreaks when it comes to videos. So after a while, when you sit back at the end of the day and like you're looking like, hey, I made no progress. And then at that point, you're just like, man, this isn't productive. Like maybe I'll just go back to emails. Maybe I'll just start calling more. So I just came up with this framework to kind of get around that so people can actually get more watches and save time versus, putting in all that time and, not moving anywhere. So this is called the permission slap. So basically, it's a strategic approach where you basically ask your prospect for permission before you actually send in the video. And it's a quick message, just asking, like I said, just asking permission. And why this is different. Most reps they send a pitch slap where they immediately ask for time or they try to sell a product. But with this, it's more consent based. You're trying to add value and you're actually building a relationship and a sense of trust versus just assuming that they're having that problem and wanting to buy your product. And this is kind of like a diagram to show you like what it looks like, correlated with your outreach sequence. So let's say like your first day, you have a call, you have a connection request, and you also have an email. That email is going to set you up for the social sequence that I'm about to get into. And it's a game changer. It's worked a ton for me and it saves so much time. So this is kind of like an example. So we have this first email. So if you notice in my CTA, I'm not asking for time. I'm not asking to book a meeting. I'm not asking for them to sign that check today. I'm asking them like, do you mind if I send a short video on how to A and B? This way it's like they either can answer the question yes, or they can say no. Either way it goes, the goal of this is only to drive a response or like see if that email actually works before I go take all this time and make this video. And then if it does go through, then I can either send a generic video that's pre-recorded so I can explain the email, explain the product a bit more just to drive some more interest. Or if they say yes, I can send a personalized email, a personalized video and, get super personalized, either find a post on LinkedIn or some research on their company page. So like once you hit that first trigger, kind of like what that looks like, you send your LinkedIn connection request. Don't include a note, of course, because that's going to be like the first red flag. When you include a note, they can see the note in that connection request. So when they hit accept, it automatically comes through. So like you definitely want to avoid that. And then assuming that they accept that connection request, like don't be in such a hurry. Maybe wait about 2 to 3 days. I know you're definitely gonna be eager to like hit them up and send that video, but you definitely want to wait just to give them that grace period. And then you want to send that initial message, literally just asking for permission. So this is an example that I sent to Kevin Dorsey. Like, hey, Kevin, mind if I share a short video on how to A and B? They can either A answer or B not or B say no. If they do, if they say yes, I go make the video. If no, I keep it pushing. I'm not pushing back at all. I ask permission. They said no, keep it pushing. And same thing, follow up, send a short follow up. Do you mind if I bump this up in case you missed it? Mind if I share the video? And believe it or not, like the follow up is actually more powerful than the initial statement, the initial question, especially if you're selling to GTM folks, like they know how sales works. So they'll actually acknowledge your follow up, and more than likely, it's going to do better than that initial message. And this is actually my favorite. So this one is where you share a valuable asset, whether it's an insightful article, video content, thought leadership, or something I did while I was doing my prospecting. I made a master list of all the companies that were hiring, and then I would make a hiring post, tag all of those companies, and then send them to the prospect that I'm going after. So that's definitely a good way to provide value and build a sense of trust, just to kind of refer them back to your video. And this one is also interesting. Just offering them an exit. Ask for transparency. Like if they're not interested and they're not responding, just give them an easy, no pressure way to opt out. Hey, does it make sense for me to reach out, or should I cool off and stay friends? This guy actually still booked a meeting because, he was pretty tied up. It's not like he didn't intentionally not respond. He was just pretty busy. And I ended up actually booking a meeting, asking him if he wanted to opt out, but he still wanted to book some time. So that framework is like a good way just to kind of save some time. Like it's pretty rough out here trying to even get responses. So like just kind of going through that framework is an easy way just to help you save time and get those videos out a lot faster. Because once you get that yes, it's like, okay, now I can spend the next 20 minutes and really like drive through this video, send it to them, and I already know they're likely to respond because they already accepted the request. I know that was a mouthful.
I
But
love it.
definitely wanted to get that out.
I love it, Tyler. That was great. And I love how there was, really strategic follow-ups, ways to add value, even your thumbnail. I think that was one of the first videos I saw that you posted, was like how to create a really unique thumbnail. Because that's probably one of the biggest parts I don't see is like, even, whether on YouTube, back to YouTube analogy, like a thumbnail is like king, like to get people's attention, right? And make it super personal. Anything in closing, last 30 seconds that you would just, in regards to one-to-one video, even just getting started, or any other practical tools you use your iPhone, use your computer. Any thoughts there in closing?
Yeah, so I actually like picked this up pretty late. I'm actually pretty sad about it. But like I didn't pick this up until like after I got like into the marketing world. But use a teleprompter. Like when I first started, like I was just trying to memorize my script, trying to be a perfectionist and get everything right. But literally just download a teleprompter on your phone. If you angle it just right, if you put it like above your eyes and tilt it down, you can't tell you're reading at all. So basically that's a good way just to kind of keep you on script and keep you below time. So that way you're not just rambling and going off script. You can adjust the reading speed to your liking. And like I said, it's just like a good way just to kind of keep you on track so you're not just rambling. And it saves you so much time. Like that's at least like 10 minutes save right there, just trying to get your script right. So I think like that can be a game changer for everyone just looking to get started, especially if you're scared to record in the first place. Now it's like just write it down and you're reading your words. So you're confident. You can be as confident as you want to be. Is your words. You feel strongly about this, so just read it. That's all you have to do.
Tyler, I love that. Great closing thought. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate your insights.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, closing this up. What's up, Kevin? Yeah, let's talk about cold calling. I'd love to hear your thoughts on like 2024 cold calling. Let's talk about some tactics that work, creating a culture of it. Lay it out for us.
Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about it. It's 2024. cold calling is dead. Everyone should just use, video and email and social selling and, just get popular on LinkedIn and make a bunch of posts and everyone just calls you and wants all of your shit. Yeah, like that's all I see on LinkedIn is just like people talking about like, ways to avoid talking to strangers because it's awkward. All right. I'm not here to tell you that like cold calling is super easy. All you gotta do is pick up the phone. Love people that say that. All right, sure, I'll pick up the phone. How many times do I call someone? What do I say when I get them on the line? What if they already have a provider? How do I overcome objections? There's like all of these things, right? There's all these things that get in the way of us making cold calls. Now, what's cool about it being 2024 and the evolution of technology is it's never been easier to get into conversations, right? What I mean by that is the hardest thing you can do is the thing that I started out doing, which is that any SDR has probably done at some point, which is, okay, I want to call Taylor. I'm going to look him up on Zoom info, find his number. I'm going to punch it into my cell phone and listen to it. Ring, 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 ring. Leave a little voicemail saying something like, hey, Taylor, I'd love to sell you my solutions. Call me back. The number is 31, right? A lot of people do that. Now, because it's 2024, the dialer market's starting to heat up. Meaning there are tools that leverage artificial intelligence, buzzword, that leverage data science, that leverage tech to get you into a lot of conversations in a short period of time. So it's a bit of a chicken and the egg problem for most organizations. The chicken being, I want to get a bunch of net new meetings with people that I don't know, that I don't have relationships with. The egg being, I need to talk to them and communicate with them, but the way I'm communicating with them right now, they're not responding, right? What's the problem with cold email and cold video and cold all these other things? If no one replies, then you're not like, there's no back and forth. The thing that I love about cold calling, and you can tell my personality, I'm a little bit out there, like it's immediate. If I want to call Taylor and I want to talk to Taylor about what's going on in his organization, I'm going to pick up that phone right now. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to learn something right then and there. And I could have sent him 100 emails and a dozen videos, and he just clicks spam, 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 spam. But as soon as I get him on the phone, I say, hey, Taylor, look, the only reason I'm calling is I help people like you with business problems like this. What does that look like at your organization? All of a sudden, we're in a conversation one-to-one talking about your business. So long story short, what's changed in 2024 is that there's so many options to use technology to get into a high number of conversations in a day. And that is different.
Very cool. I love it. Yeah, I've seen some of the different providers out there and the dual dialers and pretty cool. I love your thoughts on any kind of creating a culture of calling. How do you get, from the top down and getting, I know that's a big part of what you do.
Yeah. So calling culture is the term that I've kind of coined. It's the number one reason why people don't use dialing solutions is they don't have calling culture. The number two reason or the number one reason why dialing companies lose customers is number one is probably price these days because there's so many competitors. They just go shark each other's accounts. As soon as a renewal comes up, one guy's like, all right, I'll give it to you for half of what they were charging you. Like it's starting to get like that, particularly in the tech space, like B2B tech, really sharky. But the other giant reason is lack of calling culture, right? So what happened in 2022 or 23 and now 24, we continue to see this hamster wheel of tech layoffs just go bam, 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 bam. And all these CEOs are saying, well, hey, Mr. VP of sales, you hired 35 people last year. How come you missed your number by 25%? And he says, well, I just need more of this and that. Fired, right? So that happens. And when that turnover happens, the next guy that comes in might be a hot to trot LinkedIn influencer type guy who's like, we're using social selling. We're just going to do social selling. I need to put all my budget into event marketing. We're doing webinars. We're doing social selling. I'm doing content. I'm doing this. I've got a podcast. I need less SDRs. I need less this. Then you cancel your dialer contract, right? Because your culture is not about calling. It's not about conversations. Now, I don't want to talk too much shit. Like there are 100 ways to skin a cat, all right? You can get meetings. You can build pipeline doing a ton of different things. Now, the reason I suggest people lean into outbound calling and cold calling specifically is of the immediacy, the binary nature of it, right? It's not this like, okay, I'm going to send 3,000 emails and wait and see what comes back. It's like, there is a fact of the matter. If you make X amount of calls, you're going to get X amount of conversations. So it's controllable. And because it's controllable, it's scalable, right? And that's what I hope leaders that are watching this start to look at and understand, like, oh crap, I can't control if Google shuts down the amount of number of emails I can send in a day, and my domain gets blacklisted because the last leader had people just, spamming. So now my domain's shit and I can't get an email out. I can't control that. You can totally control if your reps are going to call and have a conversation with someone in your market. Like, that's a cultural thing. Because the biggest problem is, okay, I don't have tech for it. Okay, I don't have a process for using any tech for it. Okay, what do I say when I get on the phone? Training. Like how do reps get comfortable talking to strangers on the phone? Particularly now we're like looking at Gen Z coming into the workforce. I'm a millennial, right? So as a millennial, I had a smartphone, but I didn't get it until college, right? Didn't exist. Gen Z has been doing everything digital, everything iPad, everything scroll, click, do for so long that their natural tendency to have conversations is very low. So training should get more and more popular, right? And I think it will.
Interesting perspective. I love it. Curious your thoughts on, in closing, we got a couple more minutes left. Just love to hear your thoughts on anything practical. I love at the beginning, you kind of talked a little bit about, how to, frame the conversation, but anything, obviously using dialing technology, that's super practical. Anything else practical that you can leave folks with as far as things that you've been like, oh, wow, this has just been a game changer for how we've gotten conversations?
For sure. All right, very practically speaking, it is not like the process that I charge in consulting to bring to organizations, and I just hold their hand to walk them through it. It's not rocket science, okay? It's not rocket science. Build a list where everybody in there cares about one thing or has one or two very common problems. And the answer, Mr. CEO, is not call CEOs and call HR directors and call VPs of sales because they all need to buy your platform. No one gives a shit about your stuff, right? Build lists based on persona, based on the people, what they care about, not what you care about, right? 90% of orgs these days build lists based on what I want. Well, I would love to get a meeting with their director and the VP and bring the CEO along too. Hey, there's a board member, put them in a sequence too. I want everybody to buy Acme Solutions. That's the way people, it's selfish. It's super selfish. It's like driven on, I need to get meetings. I want to talk to these people. All right. I'm asking you practically, rethink the way you build your lists. Build your list based on what these people, these 150 people, what they should care about. And why would they care about it? Because they're in a similar industry, because they're a similar title, a similar responsibility level. Then I build a script. And these match. They're like 1-to-1. If this was like, 1945, it would be literally a rotary phone on the desk with a stack of cards and a piece of paper in front of it. And that's it. Like that is what we do when we are over here. And then we have another rotary phone over here with a different stack of cards and a different piece of paper in front of it. That's the process that works really, really, really well with Outbound. Because one of the other things that a lot of people watching this right now are saying, well, yeah, Kevin, I make calls. Yeah. Yeah. And I say, all right, walk me through like a day to day. Well, I go in and I see like, HubSpot tasks, and then, sometimes marketing will send over something, and you look at it, it's like 15 to 25 calls a day at different times, scattered. Well, why didn't you call Bob? Why didn't you call Elizabeth? Oh, well, last time I talked to Bob, he was just getting out of a meeting, and I just want to, give him some time. And, we personify what we think is going on in all of our prospects' lives. And then we tell ourselves stories about why we shouldn't call them, because calling is disruptive. So if you just have this process where we got the rotary phone, we got the people we want to call, and exactly what they might care about, we just go run that process. And what you find is some of the people don't care. Cool, bye. What you find is some people say, send me some more information. Cool, follow up, send them information, follow up with them, call them in 2 or 3 days and say, hey, what do you think of my information? I'll say, hey, most sales reps don't call me back, right? And just keep running that process. And then I have 2 or 3 of those going at one time, and that's your calling funnel. It's not super complicated.
I love it, Kevin. Thanks so much for sharing. Anything in closing, last 30 seconds, any thoughts? Feel to leave that we haven't covered already?
No, not necessarily. I just think if I'm a third party consultant for or third party referral partner for like I think I have 14 different dialers and dialing technologies and things. So if your organization is seriously looking at this and saying, all right, Kevin, like what does this really look like? I can tell you what they don't want to tell you, which is how the integrations really work, how the price point really stacks out, what the real difference is between this and this. There's all the flashy marketing stuff, but I'm like one of these insider dudes in the industry I've used 15 different dialers. I know how it works. I've implemented over 50 different, instances. So if you want the inside scoop on how dialers work and what dialers are, different, I hate to use the word better because they're all good at something. Every dialing solution is good at something. It's hard to tell with all the marketing and content and everything, what's what. So reach out to me if you want to talk about that. It's not a sales pitch at all. It's a very consultative conversation.
I love it, Kevin. Great value add, and definitely put your information in the show notes for folks to follow up with you. Thanks for coming on, Kevin. Really appreciate it. Great
Thanks
content.
for having me, man. Cheers.
Talk to you. Take care. Whew, we did it, folks. We got through all 9. Excellent information. Thanks, everyone, for sticking through. Really great stuff. And we'll definitely send out this recording afterwards. So if you want to share this with your team, this will hopefully be a series that we continue to do monthly. Next month, we're going to be doing one on inbound marketing, other GTM topics. So really looking forward to continuing this series. If you have any feedback or any thoughts on additional topics you'd like to cover in future events, please send them to me. Once again, we'll send out the recording here shortly. Thanks, everyone, for participating, and take care.